Welcome and take us home.
Oh, I need to be unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Okay, hey, that's good. Hey, my name is Jerome, and I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. And I want to thank the committee, the Woodstock committee, Robin, and everyone involved for having me here. It is a pleasure and an honor to be in such an esteemed group of people today, you know. And of course, I was working earlier today, so I got off work so I could get to my commitment today. And like I said, I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. I'm not a has-been. I'm absolutely a never was. And I'm serious. That wine took me to a point in life where getting up just didn't even cross my mind. And what happened for me is nothing shorter than a miracle. It's just like my first sponsor used to tell me all the time. He said, Jerome, there is a mystic power in the universe that can so radically change your life that even your family and friends will not be able to recognize you when it is through with you. In fact, you will not be able to recognize yourself. This power could put you in your right place in life, a place that goes somewhere with purpose and meaning. And it is your divine birthright to tap into that power. And I found that power in Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I'm an agnostic and a belligerent unbeliever. It's not that I didn't have any religious training. I decided that was not going to be a part of my experience. And what happened for me was on a summer afternoon, going to a high school dance, I drank some white pork. And that's where I ended up. You might consider me a wino. And I'm saying that wine had me. It was my master. I did whatever it told me to do. Every effort of my own resources to break free from it was absolutely nil. And what happened for me, the 60s were not no fun partying time for me. As I look back on it, I was really trying to get my life together. I had told my dad, he had put me out of his house at 18. I said, I'm gonna go to school, Dad. I'm gonna get it together. And I went to school and I was doing well. And I decided to go to a party. And I ended up drinking that night with some of my unsavory friends. They got to stomping on my head. And the police rolled up and hit me and knocked me on the top of their car and took off. And the police car has a different sound going in the high pursuit when you're in it than when you're on top of it. Those police whooped me so bad, my left eye was hanging out. Dad had to put up his house, felonious assault against a police officer. I get out of that. Next thing you know, I'm out of school, no job. I lost my job at the county. I convinced my younger sister. She drinks too. They call me Greyhound and they call her Short Dog. I convinced her, because she's a female, that she could go up to the doctor and get these barbiturates. I recruit her best friend too. I'm gonna be the kingpin drug dealer in South Central LA. But see, you know, I took a couple of those pills one time, and when I got the feeling, I said, damn, if you can't smell it, you can't tell it. So I became my best customer. And when they confronted me with the thievery, I got hostile toward them. I knocked my sister down with a party pack bottle, spat on her, and she took one of my mom's butcher knives, not the Kmart ones, the ones that come out of the block. And I could still hear her friend said, I don't give a who he is. If he did that to me, I'll kill him. And she stabbed me in the back in my mom's kitchen. I'm loaded off them Red Devils and Bourbon Deluxe. I done drank up her champagne and replaced it with Alka-Seltzer. She was really upset. The knife pierced my heart and broke off in my lungs. I'm 19, 20 years old. And so I decided to go in the alley and finish me a tall can of Slits, but the ambulance came and took me to the hospital. And I'll never forget going through that hospital. I'm up there directing surgery. I got out of that with 92 stitches in me. And my buddy come by and said they're having a party. I inched around there to the party drinking wine. I'm drinking wine with him. And he had had an altercation with somebody in the neighborhood. And this guy came and exacted his revenge. He just stepped out behind the car. We were sitting there smoking dope and drinking wine. And shot him right in the head. I'm talking about I got blood brain matter on me. He says, well, I'm not going to shoot you because you already stabbed up. I became extremely depressed in those days, extremely depressed. I'm sitting there in the room rocking, and my mom coming in, she said, what's wrong? I said, Mama, you just don't understand. You don't understand. She said, I try to understand. And what happened was I saw a commercial on TV that they had just opened up a mental health clinic in the community. I told my mom, I need to go down there and get me some help. She took me on down there. And the first day I was serious. I wanted some help. I was going to talk to the psychiatrist. I thought something was wrong. And the next day they put me in the program. I'm sitting in the lobby waiting to go back. And another guy sit right next beside me. He said, do you take these? I said, oh yeah. Man, they phased me out of their program like that. But what happened was my psychiatrist, Dr. Williams and Dr. Harris, they flipped a coin on who was going to be my psychiatrist. And so Dr. Williams was my psychiatrist. And he says, Jerome, why do you drink wine? And why do you drop them Red Devils and pass out and sleep for 3 and 4 days? I said, you know what, Dr. Williams? If I had a girlfriend, I started to say a car, but I said, no, that's a little bit too much. I said, if I had a girlfriend and a job, I would not be doing this. He said, come back next week. So I came back next week. My psychiatrist had a girlfriend for me. Oh, he hooked me up. Oh, I went over there and dated her for one time, but she had way too much experience for me, so I had to leave her alone. But he got me a job at IBM. He knew some people. And see, I'm a good test taker, but I'm a poor finisher. Oh, I start out real good, but I fade out because I drink wine. And I was fading out. I was missing Friday. I was missing Monday. So at IBM, if you miss your performance and your attendance, every 90 days, they give you a raise. If you make all them things, you get a nice raise. I missed mine twice. So I had to go see the Western Region manager of IBM. He sits on the board of IBM. He supervises everybody west of the Mississippi, including Alaska. I had to go to his office. I go to his office, his name is Mr. Trimbicki. I go to his office. He said, Mr. Scott, before we get into this discussion, I need you to hear me first. I've been reviewing your personnel folder, comments from your supervisor. You get paid on payday, you don't come back. If you come back, you smell like you got alcohol on you. You're missing far too many Mondays and Tuesdays with the flu. But let me tell you what our company will do. Because you have a profile of a man who has a problem with alcohol. And we're an enlightened company. We believe in salvaging our employees. I have the authority to put you in an alcohol treatment program that you will not have to pay for. And when you get out of that program, no one will know you have this problem but me. I will see that you get a fresh start in this company. And if you're in any financial difficulty, I have the authority to give you a loan that you can pay back at 10% of your pay. I looked at him and I said, I dare you insinuate that I have a problem with alcohol. Stormed out of his office. Got to the elevator and said, fool, go back and get the loan. I went back and told him, I said, oh, excuse me, Mr. Trimbicki, I was just a little upset because I'm having these financial difficulties. If you could give me that loan, I know my attendance would be perfect. I'll be here every day. He said, well, you go down to payroll, they will cut you out a check that you could pay back at 10% of your pay. And I'm going for the door and I'm all humble and thinking, and he said, hold it, Mr. Scott. If you miss another day in the next 90 days, you can come and pick up your last check. True to fame, I had me a tall can of Slits, watching the Rams play Green Bay, and Green Bay had $100 on the game. It was snowing in Green Bay that day. Roman Gabriel was quarterback. It was not looking good. Had a tall can of Slits, and I didn't wake up to Tuesday, didn't call, didn't do nothing. I said all them white people didn't want me to have that job anyway. And I went down and resigned in lieu of termination, paid off the loan. I had some money in my pocket. Nice severance package, couple of $1,000. Invited some people over my place. They took all the money, took all the food. They even took pots and pans. They took everything, tied me upside down in the closet. Landlord come looking for his money. I walked out of there and walked to Skid Row. I thought I was going to be there for a couple of days because I'm coming back. I didn't get off of Skid Row until, it was 1972. I was down there selling whole blood every 58 days and plasma twice a week. And I would always tell myself, you don't get drunk with blood money. This is coming up money. You're going to go over there and get you something from the Goodwill, get you some decent clothes, go and work for Walking Man, earn you a little money, go check into school, get you one of them old jobs, get you a pre-owned automobile, get wino sharp, pull up in front of your old man's house and say, see, fool, I told you I was going to be somebody. That would always be on the couch. Because I invariably think about reading that article in Reader's Digest, a little red wine, and build your blood back up. And what happened was in 1972, my family came and rescued me off of Skid Row. They wanted me to be the best man at my brother's wedding. They wanted me to talk to this man from Alcoholics Anonymous. And he got me at the wedding reception. He said, you know, I'm an alcoholic. I was really thirsty because they told him not to let me drink. And he told me his story. He said he hadn't drew a sober breath in 6 years. And his wife gave him $6 to go buy his infant daughter some formula. And he took the $6 and got him some wine and got drunk. He said that drove him to AA, and he'd been sober 20 years. And I said to myself, if I get married and my wife have twin daughters, and my wife give me $6, I'll go to AA too. And my dad put me out of his house because I started drinking again. And I ended up in Camarillo State Hospital in 1972. And that's where I attended my first AA meeting at. under duress. Wasn't on my own volition. I met this girl on the ward. Her name was Guinevere Knight. She was from Brooklyn. She spoke 4 foreign languages. She was fine too, and she liked me. And she would say, they're gonna have an AA meeting at 8 o'clock. Let's go. We get some donuts, cookies, and coffee and some cigarettes, and let's go. And I cuss her out. But out of lust and loneliness, I followed her to the AA meeting. I'm a prime example. It's not what you come for, it's what you stay for, really. Because she got out of the hospital and she got a job at Tiny Nailers. And my dad took me in. And I was getting drunk again. And he was getting ready to throw me out again to the streets. And she called up and said, do you want to go to an AA meeting? I told him, I'm going to get some help. I'm going to AA. I didn't want to go to AA. She was coming to pick me up, and I wanted to go to the Starlight Motel to consummate our relationship. And I'm putting all of my persuasion on her. She's already getting ready to bend to my will. And we get in front of the meeting, and she's getting ready to bend to my will, and I make the best mistake of my life. I told her, I said, look, Bonnie, we don't need this AA shit. I'll sponsor you and you sponsor me and we'll keep each other sober. And there were 4 guys standing at the door welcoming people into the meeting. And the littlest one walked over into the conversation, got all up in my personal space, spitting in my face, talking about, I'll be your damn sponsor. And he said, Jack K is my name and sobriety is my game. Call anytime. And he gave me his card. I would have did something to him. But it was 3 of them other corn-fed brothers over there. I said, well, I better chill. And I never forget that meeting at Wilshire Normandy, that first meeting out of the hospital. Because the lady speaking at that meeting was going to play an integral part in my sobriety. A serious part. She spoke. It was Marion Chapman. She spoke at that meeting. And when they said the Lord's Prayer, and I stood up and I saw the green door. The green door is when I'm getting ready to go on the operating table. I know I'm dying. It's no doubt in my mind I'm dying. And I tried to remember some prayer, something, to ask anything to please give me some mercy. I couldn't even think of nothing. I was just that hateful and that ornery and that far gone. And I would like to go to that meeting. I love to hear people say the Lord's Prayer after me. Because every time I'm at a meeting, even today, I see the green door. When I close my eyes, I see that door and I see it close. And Bonnie really, really cared about me. And she came over to my place. My people had, my mom and them had got me an apartment over on Westmoreland. Because they didn't want me over their house no more. they got me. And I was over there. She came over there to me and she was telling me, she said, I never forget. Because she was the first person that ever made me feel like I was, how could I say, a person worthy of even being cared for. Oh, she would talk to me like, she said, Jerome, I saw you walking and I just have to tell you this. She said, you know, I saw you walking and when you got here, I have to tell you. She said, you know what? I got this strong feeling that you're gonna do something with your life. You're gonna be a father and you're gonna be an awesome father. And when she said that, I said, shit, not me. And she came over that day and she told me, she said, you know, I want to be with you and I would love to be with you, but I can't be with you like this because you're drunk. And I felt like once again, I had lost a chance in life. She left. I watched her leave. I ain't seen her since. And I know God is doing for her what he did for me. I know she's sober somewhere in this world. So if any of y'all see Guinevere Knight, you tell her Jerome wants to say thank you. Thank you for caring enough and directed me to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I didn't get real sober then. I had to go into DTs, audio and visual. They came over there and took me back to the hospital. I was back in Camarillo, 1973. It was this time of year too, May of 1973. I had 3 visitors. 2 visitors my dad sent. One was my probation officer. He came up there. He told me if he heard of me in the vicinity of a liquor store, if I got arrested for jaywalking or spitting on the sidewalk, he was going to put me in the LA County Jail for 366 days. And he said I would not even get 1 day of good time. He said I would do every one of them. He drove up there on Mother's Day with his 90-year-old mother, a county probation officer, giving mother a ride on a Sunday to give me the news. And she stuck her head out the window and said, "Good luck, young man, good luck. I'm on my way to jail. I'm despondent." That second visitor came on Wednesday. Tall, Caucasian man, suit, had a bulge over his heart. I knew who he was. He was an undercover police officer, a detective or something. I rest assured he wasn't looking for me, but he was. He came over there. He asked the attendant, "I'm looking for Jerome Scott." And he said, there he is, because I was always complaining about his service. And he walked up on me because I couldn't run. And he says, "I'm a special agent from the Internal Revenue Service." Shoot, I relaxed. I knew the IRS don't take tramps to jail. You have to have assets, hidden bank accounts, offshore accounts. You have to have some, shoot, I didn't even have ID. I had filed my income tax, the only time I had filed income tax in my whole adult life, in 1969. I only worked 10 months because I was on SSI. Oh yeah, I got on SSI off of the Unattached Men's Center downtown. They sent me to see the psychologist. And I went over there and I talked to him and he said, right over there on Alvarado Street, he says, "Do you feel like people are talking about you?" I looked at him, I said, "Well, how did you know that?" He said, "I'm gonna recommend you for SSI. I was getting my crazy money. I used to say I was crazy. Jack told me not to play. And he said, "Well, you owe us $14,000. I said, "Do it look like I got $14,000 here in the mental institution? Why are you harassing me? You need to go out and get some white-collar criminals. What are you messing with me for?" He said, "Well, when you get on your feet, come and see us." I said, I showed him my foam slippers. I said, "Am I going to get on my feet anytime soon?" The third visitor God sent. This guy named Raymond. He had just got on the ward. I don't know Raymond, never met Raymond. But Raymond has that card. Jack K is my name, and sobriety is my game. Call anytime. And Raymond called Jack that Sunday morning, Memorial Day, before Memorial Day weekend, on a collect call to come and pick him up. Jack left his home in West Hollywood and dropped everything, left his kids, his wife, drove all the way up to Camarillo. And my sponsor was leaving. I didn't see him. He saw me first. I'm sitting in there reading the Los Angeles Business Times if I had some stocks or bonds. And Jack eased up behind me and he says, "Jerome, what are you doing here?" I didn't even turn around. I said, damn, he done followed me to the nut house. Because he was always harassing me at the meeting. If I went to the Wilshire Normandy meeting to hear the Lord's Prayer, he would always get in my face. "How you doing? Man, get up off of me." And I told him the truth that day. I said, "Jack, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I can't stop drinking. I don't know why I have to keep coming to these places. I'm getting out of here and I'm scared. I didn't tell him that, but that's where I was. And he looked at me and he said, Jerome, if you follow what I follow and you do what I do, you will never have to drink as long as you live. And you will never have to come to a place like this unless you choose to. He said, I got a spot for Raymond in the original 12-step men's house. And I'm sure I can get you one too. But I have something in me of my own devices. It's more formidable than any resentment that I ever have. And that's that baseless pride that tells me, I know I need help, but I don't want your help. And I got all uppity with him. And he just looked at me, said, Jerome, I understand and I care. And he walked away. I got that $67 that my dad had sent up there for me to come home with. And before I got it out of the town of Camarillo, I was drunk, showed at my dad's house, and I beat him down in his living room. He's not the big, robust man anymore. He has emphysema and heart disease. I stood out in front of their house and burst out every window. 3 police cars came from Newton Street. Several of the neighbors was out there cheering me on. I'm so glad the police had a little mercy on me and choked me out. Because if it was dust, I would not be in this seat today. Because I was being provocative. They call it committing suicide by cop. And they would oblige you then. And on that jailhouse floor, on the 5th of June, in a drunken stupor, I had a spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening to me is nothing other than you come to and you come to see that something has got to change, something. You can't continue to go on the way you are. Something has to change. And I came to on that drunken floor, and all I could do was hear that man's voice in my head the 4 days previous. If you follow what I follow and you do what I do, you'll never have to drink as long as you live. And you would never have to come to a place like this unless you choose to. I got an OR kick out that day because I had got arrested twice that weekend. I had threatened my aunt. She pulled up pistol on me. That was the second time. And I was all nasty from the jail on the floor, so I broke into my parents' house and I was stealing my brother's clothes to go to AA, and my mom confronted me. And I got all snotty with her. And she said, Sonny, you might not be familiar with B.B. King's new record. He said, don't nobody love you but your mama, and she might be jiving too. She said, I'm old and tired, and I don't want any more violence here. If you can't come around any better, don't come around. And I left that meeting walking to 9604 to the Friday Night Beginners group. And I did something radical that day with that 1 day of sobriety. I went up and I sit up front, and when they asked for newcomers, I raised my hand. And they had a man named John Alexander to take care of me that night. And John was in he was in just as much pain as I was. He was in so much pain, he was this close to drinking, but he was doing what they told him to do. His wife had backed the U-Haul up to his house, their house, moved every stitch of furniture, and left him a note telling him she didn't care if he was sober a year. He was a drunkard, and he would always be a drunkard. And he would never see these twin girls again. And he's crying, and he's telling me this, that he don't want to drink. And I got the arrogance to say, man, I'm tired of hearing you whine. Put me out. I walked the rest of the way home. I got out of his car, and I don't have no home. The only homes I know is old parked cars and under people's doorways. And I'm on my way back to Skid Row. I ain't got no place else to go. And I get almost to Skid Row. I I know the exact spot, right on 8th and Central, right there outside that liquor store, on the corner. And I hear God's voice. He said, if you go down the Skid Row, Jerome, you're going down the Skid Row to die, and you won't be coming back. And I turned around and I walked on to my father's front door. And he asked me, what do you want? And I said, Daddy, will you please give me another chance? Will you please help me? Because I think I found a way not to drink. And I don't have any place to go. Will you please help me? I used to say that man loved his son, but this is a different kind of love. This is the love I found in Alcoholics Anonymous. He showed me grace and he showed me mercy. And I didn't deserve any one of them. He said, go on back there, son, and lay down. But if you drink, please leave here, please. And I started making those meetings every day. And I never forget, I got that 30 days. And Marion Chapman walked up to me after the end of I got my little token. She walked up to me. She says, Jerome, do you know of a young man would like to mow the grass once a week, water the lawn twice a week, and set the trash out and for a place to stay? I looked at her and said, I don't know nobody. I'm under a lot of pressure from my siblings. They come over there. I'm the oldest. And I have 5 siblings, young adults. They come into their parents' house on shifts, telling them to throw me out because I'm gonna steal from them. I done bust out their windows. Get him out of here. They don't care about my feelings. And I told her, I says, no, I don't know if no young man wants to do that. See, she hurt my feelings. She hurt my feelings. Marion hurt my feelings. Because they had asked me to say something at the beginner's meeting. And I had my pitch. I said, one day my ship is going to come in and everything is going to be all right, newcomers. Keep coming back. The program works. And they called on me at the Saturday noon meeting, which was the biggest meeting at 9604. Oh, it was a huge meeting. They called on me. I was surprised. So I got on up there and I ended my talk. I said, one day my ship is going to come in and everything is going to be all right, newcomers. Keep coming back. The program works. And I went and asked Ward. I said, Ward, how do I sound? And Marion got up there and she said, Jerome, you keep talking about that crap about when your ship is going to come in. When in the hell are you going to send a ship out? And they laughed. Ward hunched me and said, you going to let that bee talk to you like that? And I'm so thankful that I listened to everything she said. Oh, yeah, she undressed me. But she dressed me back spiritually. That's the message sometimes people don't want to hear, is that redress spiritually. If an alcoholic, sober alcoholic puts you on the spot, they're going to undress you and then dress you back spiritually. And you have to be in tune for that spiritual message. You may not like it, but you need to hear it. And I'm so thankful I heard her. She said, Jerome, this is not a crosstalk meeting, but it's my duty to share recovery. You talk about that stuff when your ship is going to come in. When in the hell are you going to send a ship out? And she said, faith without works is dead, Jerome. Faith of this program has to work in you and through you on a daily basis. And she said, or we perish. I heard what she said. She said, sometimes you have to put your little rowboat in God's hands. She came up there twice, 2 more times, and asked me. The second time, she came up and asked me that for that job. I said, look at this old broad in the meeting trying to 13th step with a young guy. I'm talking about it took 18 weeks for me to realize that she was trying to help me, and I needed to get out of my parents' house because I have a lot of resentments towards my siblings for coming over there harassing me. Because they were better than me. They'd come over on the front porch, talk about all that good stuff. I didn't have nothing to talk about. And they look over there, you need to leave. Get you a job. I'm gonna get a job. I ain't worked it much. So that last time I took that job, and Marion was a probation officer, and my probation officer violated me. He was gonna send me to jail for a year and a day. He was serious. Marion sit out in her driveway and talk to him for an hour. I didn't know Marion was a probation officer. Had no clue. I thought she was out there gossiping about me. But she talked to that probation officer to give me some leniency. And the probation officer did. Because I finally got a real job. Emmett helped me get that job. Emmett said, we're going to treat this spiritually, Jerome. I said, what are you going to do? Emmett was giving me a ride. He pulled out in front of the motel on Figueroa Street. And Emmett said, give me your hands. I said, Emmett, is this a legitimate request? And Emmett started praying. And the next day I'm in the hall at 9604 with a couple of other tramps getting ready to go get drunk. Benny Carter, a whole bunch of them drunks. There you go. We ain't gonna do nothing. And this guy walk in and say, is anybody in here want a job? I said, damn, God, not so quick. I took that job. Because see, Jack didn't really start sponsoring me until after I got sober, 2 years. I was just floating around AA. I was just, and then they started having the dances. Oh, I love the dances. But what really made me work the steps, I'm gonna tell you the truth. What really made me work the steps was my ex-wife. She made me work the steps because she had a sponsor. And her sponsor had her working the steps. She did a 4th and 5th step. She would always try to tell me stuff, and I tell her, shit, you ain't sober longer than me. I know more than you. And she would say, Jerome, there's a principle called quantity and a principle called quality. Yes, you've been sober longer than me, but I have quality sobriety because I work the steps. What step are you working? Because, see, she had moved in. I was going with this girl, a college girl. And she was going to college. She was cute too. And she had left a note on my door. Sorry, I miss you, baby. I'm here on a couple of days. Call me. That's the first time I took Josie over to my house, over to my little apartment. And she saw the note. She took it up and crumbled up and said, tell that bitch don't call here no more. I'm here. And she stayed there a long time too. And I'm talking about things started really working for me, working at the gas station. Then my psychiatrist ran up on me, Dr. Williams. I hadn't seen him in years at Thrifty Drugstore. And he offered me a job to be a counselor at Castle East. It used to be the wagon program. And I worked that job until I took the test for the post office 39 times because I wanted to be a mailman. Josie and I, we got married. All the people from central office was there. Oh yeah, it was really nice. Josie couldn't have any children. So we had decided to adopt. And I never forget it. We was staying over in our little old apartment off of West 21st Street, and the social worker called. She says, I think we got an ideal child for you and your wife to adopt. And she told me, he said he's 8 months old. He was born on the 5th of September, 79, and he's healthy. And I said to myself, I don't care if he's crippled and lame. I'm going to get this little guy because he was born on my birthday. And I never forget, we went to see him for the first time, and the social worker stopped us at the door, right? She said, don't rush him. He ain't never seen any black people before, because the foster mother was a white lady. She said, don't rush him. So, because his mom had just left him in the hospital. And we go and sit down. We sit down in this lady's house in Downey, and he looks up and he sees me. And he crawls over, because he can't walk. He crawls over there as fast as he can, and he crawls up on me, and I hold him. And then he crawls down and lays on JoJo's lap, and JoJo is just crying. Yeah, we adopted that little guy. I got that job at the post office. I've been able to make amends to both my parents and my siblings. Because, see, Jack taught me how to do that. When they bring up some of that negative stuff I did, and I did a lot of negative stuff I thought I couldn't live down. And he just said, Jerome, if it's true, acknowledge it. And let them know that you've been sober and you haven't did that. And you know, it's funny how you write a script in your head and you want that script to play out. But sometimes the scripts in sobriety don't pay out. And that didn't happen for me, because that marriage ended. And I was really angry. I was angry because I felt like I had gave everything and got nothing. And I never forget, I'm sitting at Jack's house, and I'm so angry, and I'm so angry. And Jack said, Jerome, I did an inventory, and I talked about my resentments, and it was all on there. And he said, Jerome, what do you want? And I said, Jack, you know what I want? I want to be happy, joyous, and free again. I want to feel good again. I don't feel so good. And he said, well, Jerome, you know what? If you want to be happy, joyous, and free again, you have to want Josie to be happy, joyous, and free first, then you. And I got up. I told him I ain't going to do it. Slammed this door. Glass all shook. And he said, well, Jerome, come here. I said, go back and apologize. So I went to apologize, and he says, well, you got to do it for that guy she ran off with too. But you don't have to do it nice. And I'm talking about that kind of psychic pain. That's what I come to understand it is. It's not emotional pain. It's not loss. It's psychic pain where you feel like the circumstances that you're living in is totally unfair and unjust. And that you hateful and you blaming everything that moves because you are in that circumstance. And the pain just comes. And I found myself driving recklessly, and I asked myself, what's going on with you, dog? And I'm going to pick up my son. He's at the swimming lessons. He's 9. And I'm going to pick him up, and they all hugged up at the swim lessons. And I'm going through the McLaren Tunnel, going on to Highway 1. And I'm in that 5.0 with the top down. And something said, why don't you just pull on to the other side of the road and end this pain? And I got up to that first stoplight, and I said, well, where did this come from? And I said to myself, what do these people on the other side of the road have to do with my drama? Why am I interrupting their dinner? And I remember what he said. I heard the words, you don't have to You have to do it, Jerome, but you don't have to do it nice. So I said, well, I'm not going to do it nice. And I had every profanity you would say, and I would always end. I want you to be happy, joyous, and free. I want you to have it first, then me. And I don't know when it happened, but I was going to pick up my son at the swim lesson, and I heard myself. All that anger, rage, and pain was gone. And I knew then I never had to be in bondage ever again unless I choose to. And Jack told me, he said, Jerome, here's what I want you to do. I want you to continue to respect that your ex-wife. I want you to take care of your son. I want you to do everything you can to see that he grows up and be a decent old man. And he said, if you do that, everything you lost, because I lost the home, all that stuff, you know, when you divorce, all that was gone. It will be better. I didn't believe him, but it has been better. Let me tell you how it got better. From a material standpoint, it's off the chart. It's off the chart. But on a more personal level is the fact that I was able, under duress of my sponsor, not under volition, but to go back to school and get my master's degree. Because I was back in that place again, right? I was angry at the post office. It was a task and a half. And they were laying me off. And then they came and said, my supervisor came down to my office and she said, Jerome, I just got off the phone with the postmaster general and the presidents of the 3 major unions. And I could continue to have you on this job while we shut it down, but there's a condition. I said, well, what's the condition? She said, you have to go back to school and get a master's degree. And I asked her, I said, who's going to pay for it? Is the post office going to pay for it? She said no. And so I told her I wasn't going. She said, well, at Friday at 4:30, clear out your desk. I said, hold it. I hadn't talked to Jack. I hadn't talked to my wife. I'm just going to make one of them impulsive decisions. So I said, hold it, let me call. I called Jack. I said, Jack, you won't believe what these people are doing. They're going to lay me off, pay me for 4 years, and they won't give me all of my severance at first. Now they're talking about they want me to go get a master's degree, Jack. I said, Jack, I'm 42. By the time I get a master's degree, I'll be 50 years old. And I thought he was going to say, take the money and run. He says, no, look at it this way, Jay. If you live to be 50, you'll be 50 without a master's. So why don't you go on and try? And then he brought up every time I dropped out of school and the reason why I dropped out. And then he said, you're going to do it my way this time. He says, if the class starts at 6, I want you in your seat at 5:30. On time for you is late. I don't want you sitting in the back. I don't want you sitting in the middle. I want you to sit on the front row because only smart people sit on the front row. I know you're not smart. I just want you to pretend. Jack, my supervisor, my mom, my siblings, they were all there when I got my master's. And I didn't have the money for it. I got my BA. I got a 3.7 grade point average. They got a program there at Dominguez, which would cost me cheaply to go and get my master's. And I go over to talk to the guy who run the program, and he looked at me and told me I have never took a man in my program, and I'm not going to take one now. He didn't bite his tongue. And Jack told me, he said, if you fight him on it, you'll never graduate because he's going to mark every paper you do down. So my supervisor said, why don't you apply for Mount St. Mary's up in Brentwood, of all places? I said, I ain't got that kind of money. She said, go ahead and apply. So I applied. She said she was going to get the post office to pay for it. The post office didn't approve that money till after I got my master's. And I needed that money that August because they don't take an installment plan. And the phone rang on a Friday evening. And it was a lady, I can't even think her name now. She was from the Department of Education up in Sacramento. And she said that your professor, Dr. Sweeney, had called her and told her I was an excellent candidate to give a grant to get a master's. I thought it was $200. She said, we're going to grant you $11,000 a year to get your master's. I got my master's. Went on and got my license. Now I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. Got a little small practice in the evening. Work my regular job. My wife say I work too much, but I like this, what I'm doing. Because, I run into a lot of alcoholics in what I do. And a lot of alcoholics don't know nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing. I've never heard of it. I think I'm in a unique position for newcomers. To do what? I guess I'm doing like Dr. Bob and Dr. Silfworth. I see one that may take a bite on this. I can tell you, I can't talk about clients, but in the hundreds. I went and talked at a meeting over in Rancho Cucamonga at the Alano Club there. And it had to be over 100 of people I didn't walked in and either did a group with or talked on an individual basis with. And they were all sober. Because I've been working for this HMO now 17 years. I'm not saying it's me, but I like this here position that I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, my son, my oldest son, he's 40 now, a little over 40. He was just here for Christmas. We had a good time. He lives in Ohio, where his mom lives at. I have Glennis and we have a son of our own. He's 22. He's going to school up at Monterey Bay. He had to leave out of the dorm this year because of the virus. I have an older daughter. She's a vice president of a bank with a master's degree in Houston. She's my star child. And she was the one saying that I would not be around very long. But now she calls me J Money. She's my girl. Erica is my girl. And then I have Lauren. Lauren she's becoming a therapist right now. She works in a homeless shelter. That's her line of work, is working with the people homeless, all on the riverbed. She's out there. And she started that up in Santa Barbara when she got her BA from Florida State. My life is really good to Alcoholics Anonymous. But you know what I think would really, really change for me is Bonnie had left that hospital. And I did go to a meeting on my own. It was a men's stag meeting. And I sit there and listen to the men. And I think that was the first time I heard myself say, I'm Jerome, I'm an alcoholic. But I didn't think I could get what these men and women had gotten Alcoholics Anonymous, because me and God was not on any speaking terms. I didn't think God wanted to have anything to do with me. I thought I had just sank way too low. And I left that meeting, and it was a Jesuit priest. He must have been administering to some of the patients out there. He was in the rose garden. And I went over there and I was foaming at the mouth, talking about why God is so mean and hateful to me and why I can't have a God of my understanding. And he listened to me rant and rave. And then he just told me, he gave me a track. And he said, young man, God is whatever you want him to be. And the track was this, and I'm going to say this and shut up. I want to thank you guys. I hope I didn't bore you with this sad sob story, but it's been an awesome journey in Alcoholics Anonymous for me. I've been sober since June 6, 1973. D-Day, Day of Deliverance. He gave me this track, and it has been an integral part of my recovery. But it wasn't effective until I joined with you in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's, oh, how constant is your precious love. I seek protection under the comforts of your wings. For you have made this day. Let me rejoice and be glad in it. For today is the first day of my life. For the rest of my life. One day at a time. And thank you, dear God, just for this day. And may you lead and may you guide me in this prosperous new life. And may I never forget, during the sunshine of my life, during the storms of my life, and after the rains of my life, there's peace with you, dear God, always and forever. And all praise to the loving, living God, to whom all praise is due. I want to thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous, for my sobriety. It's a precious gift. But most of all, I want to thank you for another day of sanity. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.